I'm Natasha Halliwell, and I'm going to read Hiawatha and the Peacemaker by Robbie Robertson. I have my girls here with me, but they don't want to be in the camera, so they're on the side. Okay, so I think this book's going to be about a warrior because he has like this scar on his face or something, and he just looks like a warrior to me. And then he looks like a medicine man. You could tell they're indigenous. Um, they're in a canoe. I think that, I don't know, there's lots of things that could be happening here. They're in a boat. They could be going on a hunt. They could be doing so many different things, right?
I don't think medicine is
Well, yeah, well, they gotta eat too, though, right? It's for the, do you think you could picture yourself in this canoe? No, you couldn't close your eyes. I could. If I was to picture myself in this canoe, I'd be thinking I was in Ontario. Yeah, I could. I could just like imagine being on the water and then you could just picture it. Um, yeah, it reminds me of being in Ontario, like being a canoe, because we did it when I was a little girl at Kingfisher Lake. How did you ever go to canoe?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, with your Tim, with
With
your
your
uncle, with your uncle Tim.
Mm-hmm.
What does it remind you of? What do you think? Does it remind you of anything? It reminds me of Ontario. Just the boat. When did that happen? Last summer. Okay. Well, let's see what it's about. So Hiawatha and the Peacemaker. Yes, I'm going to read. I was just fixing the book. So you're like, come on, hurry up. I want to hear the story. All right, so our eyes scream echoed through the woodlands. Was it a dream? An eerie stream crept from the ground, and a smell burning pine filled the air. My blurred vision came into sharp focus. Everything I'd ever known had been burned to the ground. My wife and three beautiful daughters had been killed in a battle. Everything was gone. Only one man was capable of such horror, the evil chief Tadodo. Tadudo. This looks so angry and sad. Ah. I took shelter up the river. I had only a small fire and a place to sleep. I dressed my wounds with leaves and I gathered from the bush. Days, then weeks went by, consumed by anger and hunger and sleeplessness. I couldn't think, I could only think of my revenge. Okay, wait a minute, I'm kind of confused. I kind of messed up reading that, I think, so I'm just gonna reread it. I think I should reread it. Maybe I'll just go back. Just start over again. Okay. Okay. So, A fire screamed echo through the woodlands. A fierce, does it say a fierce sort of fire? A fierce? A fierce scream echoed. Okay. A fierce scream. That's why I was confused, I think. I must have on the word. Okay. A fierce scream echoed through the woodlands. Was it a dream? An eerie steam crept up from the ground, and a smell of burning pine filled the air. My blurred vision came into a sharp focus. Everything I'd ever known had been burned to the ground. My wife and my three beautiful daughters had been killed in the battle. Everything was gone. Only one was capable of such horror, the evil chief Tadaro. I took shelter up on a river. I had only a small fire and a place to sleep. I dressed my wounds with leaves. Then I got with leaves I gathered from the bush. Days, then weeks went by. Consumed with anger and sleeplessness, I could only think of revenge. Oh, okay. So he he got pretty angry after his wife got killed, and then he found some shelter up the river away from his community that got burnt, and tried not to think about it, I guess, but that's all he could think of. I think that's how I would be too if that happened, right? It's like, it's like the only thing that you could do if that happened, right? Someone came and did that to you. Continue. The sun rose early one morning and burned the mist off the river. It was as if a path had been cleared of what had happened. For what had happened next, a blinding reflection came off the water, and from it a man paddled gently toward me. As he reached the shore, I realized the reflection was caused by the sun hitting his hand carved white stone canoe. Hmm. So I think I better summarize this so fast. So we all know he's mad because his wife and kids got killed. And then he found some shelter, and all he can think about is revenge and anger. And he woke up in the morning, and all of a sudden there's this man in a stone canoe, right? Well, that's what I'm wondering too, right? How does this stuff float? That's kind of interesting. All right, so who are who are you? Why have you come here? I asked. He answered only with a smile and handed me a string of wampum shells, as if an offering. We stood quietly observing each other, and then he spoke softly, stumbling over his words. I know of your pain. I know of your loss. I carry a message of healing. Have come to tell you of the great law. Fighting among our people must stop. We must come together as one body, one mind, and one heart. Peace, power, and righteousness shall be the new way. I considered his words, but I didn't believe him. Our people governed only by through fear. I had never thought peace among our tribes was possible. The man spoke again. To travel with me to the land of the Mohawk and let us spread the good word. As you can hear me, my voice is quiet and my words are difficult to understand. I know that you speak with power and confidence, and I know that your voice carries straight through the heart. I need your help, my friend. I need you to help me carry this message. Oh, I showed you the pictures. I'm sorry. The pictures. Get into in the story. What do you think's gonna happen now? Make some guesses. Do you guys?
They're gonna go.
Yeah, because we're seeing them in that boat. Hey.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm guessing that's what's gonna happen too. I think so. I think that's what's gonna happen.
I can't word.
I can't word. Okay, let's continue on. All right. I agreed to travel with him and help him carry his message. Oh, you're right. You agreed. And so Hiawatha came to tell the story of the great peacemaker. Oh, and there's that picture in the front that you see. Cover. I love. So he's going to travel with him. Right? He said. So I started this. I I started at his stone canoe, bewildered by its ability to float. Right? We paddled off, and with every impossible moment, that canoe guided across the guided glided. Ooh, I'm talking too, breathing too fast. Sorry, glided across the water. I become more. Yeah, I'm just gonna. I confused myself from the start. I'll start. All right. I stared at his stone canoe, bewildered by its ability to float. That's, but we paddled off, and with every impossible moment that the canoe glided across the water, I became more of a believer. When we arrived at the land of my people, the Mohawk, we were greeted warmly. The chief and the elders were summoned, and we gathered in a circle. A few clan mothers looked on with curiosity and concern. The peacemaker closed his eyes and placed his hand on my back. Somehow he had power to move his message through me. I began to speak his words. Peace, power, and righteousness shall be the way, I said. We must join together. All nations will become one family. Our people shall have one body, one mind, and one heart. This is the message of the great law. The clan mothers nodded in agreement, and a sense of relief spread over me. But then the war chief spoke. We respect your message, but we cannot join you, he said. How can we know if your words are true? Taro is too strong, too violent. Our people must be prepared to fight. The peacemaker quietly stuttered. The great law is more powerful than any one man. We will return with proof that our nations can join together. Then when they, I like it too. It's nice. As the peacemaker and I traveled toward the land of the Kayaga, he spoke to me of healing through forgiveness. My mind still filled with hatred, and my heart still filled with pain of my loss. I could not comprehend this. When we arrived, we learned that the Kayaga tribe had been dis disbanded and attacked. What? Dis disbanded and attacked by Tadoroho, the warriors, and his warriors. So I need to guide my finger with it. My mind was floated with images of the battle that he had been taken on. So now devastated. Yeah, I confused myself. Let's reread it. Okay, I do that with words. I'm so sorry, guys. We don't need to go back that far. Yeah, I'll start from there. So when we arrived, we learned that the Kayaga tribe had been devastated in an attack by Tadoroho and his warriors. My mind was floated with images of the battle that had taken my family. Rage filled my body. I turned to the Peacemaker and yelled, "We will never be free." Okay. So this is like, I think this kind of changes my idea of what I thought in the front that they're like going hunting. I thought they were going to go hunting. This totally changes my, right? Are you speaking Spanish? See? See? See, senor? Okay. Yes. It totally does change my mind. Okay, we'll continue on. So, in an attempt to soothe me, the peacemaker asked me to sit with him in the Kayaga. That's such a new, different word, hey? Kayaga. Do you understand it? Is that a new context for you? Do you understand it? Kayaga? Do you know what it means? It's cool. This would be the Kayaga tribe, so they're the people, right? Yeah, so Kayaga. Cayuga. So that's who they're meeting now. The little three canoes. So it was him, and then the peacemaker, and now the Kayaga. Yeah, well, let's see what's going to happen here. Sorry, I meant the people. Three people. So, in an attempt to soothe me, the peacemaker asked me to sit with him in the Kayaga Council. He looked deep into my eyes and spoke to the people. I do not see defeat, he said. What I see is passage, a passage to a new way of life. Join me, and together we can spread peace rather than war, love rather than hate, unity rather than fear. The peacemaker placed his fist over his heart. A feeling of strength and trust ran over my spine. My new, with my new hope, we headed toward the great hill to see the Sinaka people. With the Kayaga chief followed us in his canoe. So there is his canoe. Together we paddled as one nation. So we got new words. So now we have the Kayaga and the Sinaka. Senaka. Seneca. So I wonder, are you going to join us? You're going to read a book. Oh, no, this looks dangerous. We were met by 15 armed braves. For the first time, the peacemaker showed signs of worry. We were surrounded by warriors and led to the center of the Sanaka village. The Sanaka chief approaches the circle, and the guards closed in on us. With a wave of his hand, the warriors lifted their spears. But then he nodded, and the guards dove their spears deep into the dirt, the Sanaka chief sat down and told us that the wind had carried our message from the land of the Kayaga. The Sanaka people wanted to learn about the Peacemaker and the Great Law. We will perish if we continue this violence. A change must come, and it is time and the time is now. Alone we will be broken, I said, but together we are more powerful than the greatest warrior. The Sanaka chief trailed in his canoe. Jesus. Trailing behind him. Ding dong. And together we rode as two nations. What do you think are the most important parts so far?
But they're coming.
Yeah, they're coming together so far. I think so too. Yeah, actually, it's the Peacemaker's in his name, right? Actually, here you go. Oh, this looks scary. That looks scary. Oh, oops. Right. Sorry. Okay, let's continue. Guided by the moon. Guided by the moon, we trekked through the forest and the land of the Wanada people. We were halfway to the camp when snap of a stick when the snap of a stick was heard through the trees. Suddenly the earth beneath our feet gave away. We hit the ground and we were then what does that say? Right here. And then engulfed. Okay, so you understand what's going on. You continue. Engulfed or engulfed? What do you think? Yeah, there's an F. Okay, let's read it again. So guided by the moon, we trickled through the forest in the land of the Wenati people. We were halfway to the camp when the snap of the stick was heard through the trees. Suddenly the earth beneath our feet gave away. We hit the ground and then we were engulfed by the giant net. Oh no. The Wenati chief stood towering over us. I've spared your life, he declared. Why would two chiefs and two strangers be so foolish as to enter our territory in the darkness? His men dragged us through the dirt and bound our hands. The peacemaker explained that we had joined the Kayage and the Sanaka nations in the name of peace, but his words had no power with Awanade. Then the peacemaker turned to me and said, "Tell your story, Hiawatha. Tell us of your great loss." I spoke of my pain and my hatred for Tadoroho. I told the Wanade that my wife and my three daughters had been killed by the violent world we had created. But as I spoke, I felt something come over me, forgiveness, and I had not been able to save my family, but on this journey, I had been able to forgive myself. I began to understand the meaning of the Great Law, and I turned to the Peacemaker and placed my fist over his heart. With a knowing nod, he smiled. A warrior approached, and he untied all of us one by one. Rather than feel angry that I that rather than feel the anger that had consumed me, I now remembered the joy of my family. I was joined by Kayaga chief and the Sanaka chief, the peacemaker. and lastly, the Wanade chief. Together we traveled as three nations. In time, the time had come to return to the Mohawk people with proof of our message. When we arrived, they were impressed to see the three chiefs with us. The clan mothers had a glowing look of approval, but the Mohawk chief told us that our mission had traveled to Tadoroho. His evil is too great, he said. Your message will only bring harm to our people. Angered by his lack of faith, the Wanadi chief pressed the sharpened tip of his staff under the chin of the Mohawk chief. We no longer use violence, said the peacemaker, as he reached out and lowered his staff from under the chief's chin. The peacemaker led us to the tallest oak and that towered over the Mohawk River. I will climb this tree, he said, and your men shall cut it down, but I will not perish. The river will catch my body and carry it to safety. Then you will know my words are true. My sacrifice.
No.
He's getting taken. He's like, I'm gonna do it. Doing it. The men chopped down the massive tree. They crashed into the icy waters. The peacemaker vanished. I stood silently, stunned by the foolish stunt. I feared the peacemaker had sacrificed himself in a critical point in our journey.
Mom,
Okay, and then those ladies are like screaming for me. Yeah.
I don't know why, but I'm just gonna
Free
go ahead.
falling.
I don't know why, but
Tom
skip ahead.
Brady is just, I'm free falling. Yeah. Yeah. It really reminds me of Ontario. The pictures.
Yeah.
Yeah. An elder clan mother approached the circle of chiefs with four younger women by her side. This man has come with a message of peace and unity, but you greet him with closed eyes, ears, and closed mind, she said. You reject Tadoroho, but you've behaved just like him. She looked at me, and I could feel her sympathy for the death of my daughters. A tear ran down her cheek. Let us hope the peacemakers live, she said. While you sharpen your weapons, I will pray for a miracle. The Mohawk chief was transformed by her words and nodded. The other woman stepped into the council her. The other woman stepped in to counsel her, and we all quietly walked back to the camp. Yeah, I listened to your answers.
No.
Yeah, no doubt. Eh? When we arose in the morning, smoke from the river's edge caught our attention. We hurried down to find the peacemaker sitting by a fire, patiently waiting for us. The elder clan mother draped a blanket across his shoulders, and relief spread among us. Filled with emotion, the Mohawk chief agreed to follow us in the canoe to the land of the Wanagada, Onondaga, to comfort the chief Tadoroho. Together we paddled as four nations. Well, this is a scary picture. The wicked Tadoroho lived separately from his people. Bands of warriors stood guard day and night. When we arrived, they yelled and pushed us away. The peacemaker kept his hands by his side to discourage violence, but the chiefs and I pushed back. A figure approached in the doorway of the dwelling, hunched over, withered, and twisted. Tadoroho was a terrifying sight. Sickness, 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 sickness from the evil within had taken over his body. Scales covered much of his skin, and snakes slithered through his hair and onto his shoulders. No words came from his mouth. Instead, a forked tongue produced with a thick hissing sound. Like a, yeah, that's a good, you had a good snake sound. Look at his toes.
Oh my goodness, it's skinny, skinny, skinny.
My anger turned and I wanted to destroy Tadoroho. The chiefs continued to push against the warriors, and the fighting grew until something unexpected happened. A soft, haunting melody of purity and truth come floating through the air. Spellbound, and lowered their weapons. The hymn was coming from the lips of the peacemaker. His melody had stopped the fighting. As the song drifted through the air, the moon crossed in the front of the sun, darkening the blue sky. The miracle stunned the warriors, and they pulled back in fear. But the rest of us were enchanted by the glory of the hymn. We joined in singing. Tadoroho, Tadoroho cursed the sky, his waving his scepter and showing no sign of fear. As the peacemaker finished his singing, the moon passed, revealing the sun again, but more beautiful than before. Then the peacemaker asked me to make a medicine for Tadoroho's sickness. He said that there were that where there is darkness we must bring light, and that it is by forgiveness that we are set free. I always say what's done in the dark gets brought to the light. Johnny Cash. Johnny Cash. I gathered roots and herbs for the medicine, but how could I help a man who had brought me so much misery? How could I forgive him? Yet I put my heart and soul into the potion, and with his action, my anger disappeared. And with this action, sorry, my anger disappeared. I entered the hut with the medicine paste and fresh water. I explained that every day some of the paste must be mixed with the water and drank. Tadoroho grabbed the medicine from my hands and drank. He, he strained his strained breathing erased the evil look into his eyes, and they softened. He appeared to wonder why a man to whom he had brought so much pain would help him. It looks creepy. I really don't like it. I don't know what it looks like. I don't know.
I would want one of these things.
Yeah. The peacemaker told Totoro that we would return in 3 days and continue taking the medicine. And to continue taking the medicine. We traveled back to the people of the Kayaga, the Mohawk, Senaka, and the Wanade, and I told them of our encounters. On the third day, a mass of people followed us to the land of the Wanaga, the chief of Taroro once again. Taroro's voice had returned, but he was still hunched over and sickly. The peacemaker approached him, and with all the tribes watching, placed his hands above his head and chanted. Tadoroho let out a scream, and the snakes slithered from his hair into the grass where they belonged. You guys still awake? You want me to go back? They're falling asleep on me. Everyone followed the peacemaker to the tall white pine. He placed his hand on my back, and once again I spoke for him. People of all nations must now come together as one. Beneath the tree we shall bury all our weapons of war. This will symbolize the end of our fighting. The men uprooted the white pine and threw their weapons into the hole. Now we will replant this tree, and it shall be called the tree of peace. I wonder if it's going to be able to pull our weapons. I wonder if it's going to be able to grow. As I looked at Tadaraho, the scales on his skin began to disappear. The peacemaker placed his fist over his heart again, and I spoke. As 5 nations, we will bring forth peace, power, and righteousness. The women of our tribe shall appoint the chiefs, and as one people, we shall live under protection of the great law. All voices will be heard. We now vote before action is taken. I looked at Todoroho, and a once crooked man now stood upright. He's healed. Atop this great white pine shall live an eagle that will look over all 5 nations. And that eagle shall be you, Taroroho. You will be the great keeper of peace and the great protector of all people. The men and women of the Mohawk Nation began to stomp their feet in unison, clapping from the Hiawatha, and the chant formed between the Onagada and the Wande and the Sanaka pounded drums. The rhythm grew louder in perfect time and melody, soared through the pines. I looked over at Toro, but he was gone. A beautiful scream echoed through the woodlands. And as 5 nations, we looked up to see the eagle perched at the top of the tree. That's Toro now.
I think that's nice that they added that, like, the eagle to resemble the white to resemble the stars and
Yeah, I think so too. Did you learn anything? I learned that, like, well, ironing, no, forgiveness is very, very important. You can't heal unless you forgive. I know, I understand that, and I think that this is a good way to teach that. Yeah. So, what do you think we could do differently after reading this book? Mm-hmm. Maybe, yeah, come together like they say. I think that would be a good idea too. So did it match what we thought we already knew about this story? I don't know.
Well,
My
considering you thought they were gonna go
yeah, which they probably did eat on their journey.
you don't
They
think they
were
would?
sailing.
Well, I guess if he did that for
Yeah, he probably did do the hut too for the peacemaker, but then he come to him. So
yeah, he cooked it. He cooked it.
yeah, it's a good book. All right. Well, thank you.